All right, so we're going from the 25 V2S. We just got off of it. Now we're on to the 24 V2. Look at these things. I'm sorry, but which design do you like better? You know, I've ridden the V2 a lot, so this won't be a whole huge dialogue of what this actually feels like, because I got a video of that. Check out the link below if you want to see that. It's more of like coming off of that, what it feels like to hop onto this. Definitely some differences as far as the components wise. Öhlins versus Showa forks, I believe. Got the M50 calipers versus the M23 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. You can roast me online, whatever. But yeah, let's hop on the V4 and see what it's like. Let's hop on the 24 V2 and see what it's like. There we go. We'll get it out. We'll talk about the slow stuff with the 24 V2. And that is some of the features, some of the things that you notice right off the bat. Because I was able to ride this and the new one back to back, the riding position, you notice on the older, this 24, that it's far more aggressive. This is very much a similar riding position to a Panigale, like a V4 Panigale, whereas that V2S Panigale, the 25, is far more relaxed and definitely more upright. I will say I fit on this particular V2 better. I have a little bit better reach and my knees aren't quite in line with my elbows or even past them in some cases. And I do have a little bit more room to scoot back. Now that being said, the tank itself feels a little bit wider, which kind of surprised me because I always felt this V2 kind of held true to like the 11 and 1299s, where the tanks felt nice and narrow. But the ergonomics of the way that tank is shaped, the 25 Panigale V2's tank is shaped, it really sucks your knees into the tank itself and helps you feel more locked into the bike. Now, obviously I haven't been able to top out either of these bikes, and horsepower is really all about that top end the top end point. The torque's really where it's at. But what I find interesting is the way this particular V2, the previous generation V2, actually delivers torque is definitely different than the new one. And I won't say it's in a good way. You hear how it bellows. I mean, it sounds great. This is stock, these all stock everything. But what happens when you get in it, it feels a little slow. It feels a little lazy spinning up. Like it needs a little bit of, couple more revs, couple thousand revs to really get it in that spun up area. And I know you're like, well, dude, there's a car in front of you. There's no way you can tell that. Well, when we were going slow on the 25 V2, I was at 3,000 RPM, or 4,000 actually, and then I gassed it. Well, once this person turns, I'll do the same thing and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's funny because at the time you don't really notice it. You didn't notice it because you didn't have any frame of reference as far as V2s goes. This is what you knew. But watch this. Third gear, 4,000 RPM. And now we're getting speed. Now we're getting that torque laid down, 7,000, 6,000 RPM. And like I said, it just feels lazy. Like there's a lot of rotating mass to get spinning, and it finally does. I know you can argue, hey, you're not in the power band, but I don't believe I was in the power band of the other one that much either. And I even did in odder gears and lower revs to sort of feel, you know, that torque and hitting it in the weirdest of spots, and it never disappointed. Like even in first gear, there you go. Like the torque is 7,000 to 8,000 RPM, and this thing goes to 11.5, and you think, okay, well the other one only goes to like 9.5 or 10,000, so this should be a little bit better, but that usable torque is 4,000 RPMs lower on the 25 than what it is on the 24s. Come on, I want torque right there, and it just wasn't. So it's funny, this is like going and riding a V4 Panigale to a V4R Panigale, where the revs are so much higher. Remember, the bicyclist. I'll also say change of direction is a little slower. It feels heavier. And the brakes aren't as good. They don't quite have the feedback that I like. Like there's something, and then there's the power. This isn't all to say this is a bad bike by any stretch. It's a phenomenal machine. But that new V2, the 2025 V2, is more refined. And here's the interesting analogy that I'll use to compare it, and that is, it was like going from a $12.99 to a V4 Panigale. It was that type of difference. Even though they're both twins, it feels like an entirely different engine. I mean, obviously it is, but it feels like an entirely different bike in every facet of that motorcycle. It feels different. The ride, the ergonomics, the power delivery, the engine characteristics, the brakes, the suspension, the chassis, like all of it feels honestly tighter, more refined than what this does. Go check one out yourself. We're gonna head back to the shop and give you the closing thoughts between the 24 V2 and the 2025 V2S.
All right, so we just got off the 2024 V2. If you want to see the full ride of the 2025 V2S, be sure to check the video out. It is in the link. That is the one you should have watched first and come back to this one so you understand the context of everything. That being said, what was it like to jump from the 25 to the 24 V2s? There's some definitely things we want to notice. First and foremost, I just want to point out the looks. Which one do you like? Leave a comment down below. I'm not going to tell you which one I like. I probably already have by accident, but look at these. Tell me what you think. Which one do you like better? Why not? And then, yeah, leave that comment. Now, let's start with the way the power from both these V2s are delivered. The 24 V2 is that 955cc, 150 horsepower, 76 pound-feet of torque. So that sounds great on paper. Whereas the 2025 V2S is 120 horsepower and 69-ish pound-feet of torque with exhaust. We're looking at 126 to 71 pound-feet of torque, which obviously is less than the 24. But the way that the 25 actually makes the power and applies it is far and away different than the 24. And by that I mean, it seems to rev faster. Seems like there's a punch down lower in the rev range, whereas the 24 V2, you need to be in 7,000 and above RPM to really get any of that torque to come through. And it doesn't really hit you, just kind of moves you along. And that's not to say the 24 V2 isn't a great bike. It's fantastic. And honestly, I was kind of more used to the revs because of the V4R than I am with the low-end torque that the V2S has for 2025. But the power delivery, again, the 25 is a punch, it goes. And you would think with less torque, less horsepower, wouldn't quite measure up. I think with the rev range and the 3,000 to 4,000 RPM of usable torque and revs, that's what makes the 25 seem more refined and more usable than the 24. Again, because you got to be so high on the revs, you don't really get a hit of torque, you just kind of feel it move you along. The other aspect of it is, this is a lighter bike, so it's going to get moving. You notice when I twist the throttle on this in the same rev range, granted this is not quite the power band of the 24, but you'll hear the engine spin up and it just feels lazy. It's lethargic getting going, whereas this is like, ugh. It looks like it wants to do a wheelie. It feels like it wants to do a wheelie, and I guarantee you in the Street Fighter, you're going to want to do the wheelie because it's going to be fun. Talk about the riding positions real quick, because this is always being referred to as a combination of a super sport mating with a V2. There's aspects of it that I agree with. The way this tank sits, the way you're kind of more upright, these clip-on or bars definitely feel a little more raised than on the 24 V2. But what I want to say is the tank itself, the shape, really lends you to tuck in and squeeze, whereas when you go to the 24 V2, it's definitely a little more wide where you want to grip, and this part down here doesn't quite curve to your knees. So you want to squeeze, it's harder to get around and get a good feel for it. You also notice I'm considerably more forward, and it's definitely more of a sport bike position versus the 25 V2. I also want to point out that I believe that I have more room to move back on the 24 V2 than I do on the 25. I feel like I hit this little seat pad back here often when I was trying to scoot back, which around town through the twisties isn't going to be a problem, but I feel like on track my knees and elbows are almost on the same plane, and when you tuck down I don't like touching them. So that is, if you're taller than 6 foot, that's where that's going to be a problem. Whereas this 24 V2, you have that real estate that Panigales have always had, and you're going to fit no matter how tall you are. I know a buddy of mine is 6'6", and he fits on these just fine. Now, as we look at the switchgear, we noticed between the 24 and the 25, they're very different. First and foremost, the 25 has cruise control. I mean, come on. It also has the mode switch up here, whereas the 24 has it where the turn signals are actually at. So that's a little bit different. You also notice the dash. The dash on the 24 is like any other Panigale from, I think, 2018 is when they started that new dash layout. So you still have that with this 24. 6 years old, you can tell because this 25 is far better resolution, far better colors, and it's more clear to look at, along with not having that much of a problem with glare. But the switchgears, it's a little busy, but it's easy to get around, whereas this is even easier to use and a lot less busy. It's just this has a ton more functionality. So overall, I would say that the 25 V2S is absolutely an upgrade over the 24. Does it mean that it's a better bike? In my opinion, it kind of does. Everything feels more refined, it seems to work a little bit better. The power is more usable in a wider rev range, and it's definitely more comfortable. Something I will point out real quick is the fact that this bike got hot on the same track at the same temperature than what this one did on the same track, same temperature outside. So that already tells you that this is what Ducati has been, nut roaster hot, whereas this one is finally a little more bearable on the streets, especially when it's, 90 plus degrees outside like it is now here in Arizona. It's a level of refinement, but also just another chapter in Ducati in a different way of showing how to do speed and performance. And that is what these two bikes are. While they are definitely Ducatis and they both say Panigale V2, they are very different. And I urge you to try this before you throw shade at it, even though I know a lot of you have because of the engine. But honestly, the engine is what makes this bike rather good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up. If you enjoy this type of content, hey, hit subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications whenever I do post. And if you're in and around Tucson, On Any Moto has actually both of these bikes for demos. So if you're curious to see what they're like back to back, like I just did, come out to On Any Moto and see what it's about. But with that, I'll see you on the next video. Be sure to check out the ride as well.